My name is Scott Cox, and I'll be presenting my final project on disruptive leadership at UPMC. I selected this topic from the course material that we learned about effective leadership. When we think of effective leadership, I often hear a great leader communicates, motivates, is creative, decisive. While all of these are critical to lead teams, my presentation will take this thought on leadership beyond these general approaches. In this presentation, I will show you an organization, UPMC, who has been a disruptor in healthcare. I will explain the theory of disruptive leadership and how this leadership theory led to innovation at UPMC and made them a leader nationally in the healthcare industry. I will conclude the presentation by showing the results of what can be accomplished through disruptive leadership. UPMC's mission is to serve the community by providing outstanding patient care and to shape tomorrow's health system through clinical and technological innovation, research, and education. UPMC's history begins in the 1980s, being built as an academic medical center with the University of Pittsburgh. This evolved to the 1990s as an integrated healthcare system and further on to what this became, this provider-payer model that will be discussed later in more detail. The three internal, external, environmental challenges that will be discussed in the following slides will be Highmark moving from an insurance provider to providing care, staffing shortages in the industry, and Amazon entering the healthcare market. UPMC began as a medical provider, but in the early 2000s, UPMC's approach moved to an integrated delivery and finance system model. In simpler terms, UPMC would provide medical care and research, but would also operate by offering insurance products. Why was this important? In 2011, Highmark announced that it would enter the provider side of healthcare and acquire hospital facilities. This was a direct threat to compete with UPMC. Highmark had traditionally been known as only being a medical insurance provider. This was described as the beginning of increased competition in the Western Pennsylvania markets. UPMC is also challenged with the fact that the U.S. is projected to experience a shortage of registered nurses, and this is expected to intensify as baby boomers age and the need for healthcare grows. Also contributing to the problem is nursing schools across the country are struggling to expand capacity to meet the rising demand. According to the United States Registered Nurse Workforce Report Card and Shortage Forecast, published in January 2012, issue of the American Journal of Medical Quality, a shortage of registered nurses is projected to spread across the country between 2009 and 2030. In October 2010, the Institute of Medicine released a report on the future of nursing, initiated by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which called for increasing the number of bachelor-prepared nurses in the workforce to 80% and doubling the population of nurses with doctoral degrees. The current nursing workforce falls short of these recommendations, with only 55% of registered nurses prepared at the bachelor or graduate degree levels. Finally, we know of Amazon as being one of the most well-known disruptors in all aspects of retail. They appear now to want to do the same in healthcare. In 2018, a health venture was established by Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and JP Morgan Chase. The idea of the venture was to take aim at intermediaries in the healthcare system as part of a broad effort to reduce wasteful spending, said Chief Executive Officer Dr. Atwal Gowade. The venture calls to improve care for more than 1 million individuals who get health insurance from the three firms. Over time, if successful, its efforts could be felt more broadly among the more than 150 million people in the U.S. who get their health insurance through work. In addition, Amazon's $1 billion acquisition of online pharmacy PillPack marks another effort to move into healthcare and follow its alliance with JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Hathaway to lower the cost of covering employees. I will now explain the theory I've chosen and how this relates directly to creating innovation at UPMC. Before I begin, let me first help us understand early concepts of leadership traits. The first attempts to understand leadership was based around certain traits that previous leaders in history had. Research defined a trait as a distinctive physical or psychological characteristic that accounts for a person's behavior. The great man theory of leadership held that a person was either born with or without the necessary traits of leaders. Leaders were born, not made. This theory held in the early 1900s but began to be challenged. Between 1904 and 1948, over 125 studies were done to compare traits of successful leaders with those of their unsuccessful counterparts to identify success traits. The behavioral phase held leaders may be best characterized by how they behave rather than by their personal traits. The leader's behavior and style cause other leaders to follow them. Lastly, the situational phase made it clear that there is no one best style of leadership. I mention these because as these three theories have evolved, I believe they all contributed to and helped create a disruptive leadership style. The theory on disruptive leadership is relatively new. Disruptive leaders change habits from the beliefs, behaviors, and consequences one can have. The article from the Harvard Business Review, Rebel Talent, provides much insight into this theory. The article articulates 3 reasons why we conform at work. The first reason is because of social pressure. This includes modeling the behavior of others in similar roles, agreeing with the opinions of managers, and agreeing to a team's poor decisions. Secondly, we become too comfortable with the status quo. Many organizations have standard practices and doing things the usual way, which tend to shape performance. We get comfortable with doing things the same way and see a greater loss deviating from the status quo than one could gain with doing something differently. Sticking with the status quo can lead to boredom. Companies that the article points out this happening to include Borders, BlackBerry, Polaroid, and MySpace. The third and final point is to interpret information in a self-serving manner. We prioritize information that supports our existing beliefs and experiences and ignore information that challenges them. 6 strategies are discussed in the article to encourage rebel behavior in an organization and in yourself. These steps include giving employees opportunities to be themselves, encourage employees to bring out their signature strengths, question the status quo and encourage employees to do the same, create challenging experiences, foster broader perspectives, and voice and encourage dissenting views. Psychological research helped the author of this article, Francesca Gino, understand how non-conforming workers think and make choices. The timeline shows from past to present and several of our theories that were reviewed in this course, including Frederick Taylor's scientific management, Max Weber's bureaucratic management, and Douglas McGregor's theory X and Y. So how does this theory relate to UPMC's innovation? Because of disruptive leadership, UPMC has led an effort of proactive transformation. There are 3 areas that have formed from this theory. They include organizational structure, culture of agility, and history of radical transformation. UPMC's model of disrupt, scale, protect the mission, and control their fate happens through well-planned strategies. These strategies have allowed for more integrated care throughout the communities UPMC serves. Four areas for focus of UPMC included breadth and diversity, innovative translational science, integrated delivery and financing systems, and disruption through technology. This disruptive approach allowed UPMC to make choices on how to approach their new competition in the market. This was critical in combating the increased competition discussed earlier that was coming from Highmark. Branching from a provider of care into a health insurer has given UPMC control of its fate, Jeffrey Romoff, president and CEO of UPMC, said. Instead of leaving an elite hospital system in the vice of a powerful insurer, in having its own large health plan gave UPMC a new incentive to avoid expensive care that is not best for the patient, since the hospital's income is the health plan's outline. Also, despite its size, UPMC acts like a smaller company because it maintains its agility. Smaller enterprises and startups are typically less tied to old ways of thinking. They are free to see the future of an industry from a completely different vantage point. Moreover, given that technology often plays a vital role in innovation, disruptors less beholden to legacy infrastructures may have an advantage over more established firms. Continuing to be disruptive, UPMC announced minimum wages for all positions at $15 by 2021. Obviously, this wasn't targeted at nursing staff to combat the staffing shortages previously discussed, but along with the 15 by 2021 campaign, UPMC introduced several other benefits. John Gailey, Senior Vice President at UPMC, was quoted as saying, "The media has focused heavily recently on the question of minimum wages, both here in Pittsburgh and across the country, including the Fight for 15 campaign. As the largest employer in the region, UPMC is often a lightning rod for these arguments." Along with this initiative, UPMC created a My Nursing Career Ladder. The goal of the program was to give nursing staff a path that they would choose to advance their careers at UPMC. My Nursing Career enables nurses to grow their careers to meet the needs of an ever-changing healthcare environment and to provide care for an increasing complex patient population. Our last example of how disruptive leadership tackled the challenges put forth and helped to innovate was when UPMC announced that they would be partnering with Microsoft in hopes to be the Amazon of healthcare. The two companies entered into a partnership to create new products built and piloted at UPMC and aimed at transforming care delivery. Tal Happenstall, president of UPMC Enterprises, said UPMC hopes to take advantage of Microsoft expertise in fields like artificial intelligence and cloud computing, and already has several product ideas it hopes to develop through the partnership. He explained, "Microsoft has technological tools they are very anxious to deploy in healthcare, and to the extent that they can come to UPMC, and UPMC can be what we call customer zero for these products, they think it's a huge benefit to them." Now that I have reviewed with you the organizational challenges and how the theory of disruptive leadership led to combat those, what is one result of all these disruptions? It was announced that UPMC would be doing a $2 billion investment to build 3 digitally based specialty hospitals. These hospitals will include vision and rehabilitation, cancer, and heart and transplant. In conclusion, this course introduced me to new or furthered my knowledge on leaders who helped to shape early management practices. These included Max Weber, Frederick Taylor in scientific management, Mary Follett, and others. Were these people discussed in our text rebels and displayed disruptive leadership? I believe so. Disruptive leadership is proactive, and thoughts are acknowledged early on before situations present themselves. They let their employees be rebels to not conform to traditional ways of thinking. This thinking of disruptive leadership is critical when leading your teams through difficult change. The ability to foster a culture of disruptive leadership becomes so important in an industry such as healthcare, given the amount of change that happens. And as you saw in my presentation, when this occurs, it leads to innovation that makes a company like UPMC a leader in the complex industry of healthcare. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you for your time.